Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. There's a reason I call my show the Peter Dislike Show. Aside from Peter Schiff and how he says, he basically says Peter Shit Show at the beginning of his. I know that's not what he says, but he's implying it. I know that. Of all the names that he could give his program, right? And the fact that he never responds to me when I ask him, is that why you call your show the Peter Schiff Show? He implies it. Everybody knows his show is the Peter Shit Show. Now, I do a lot of things that society strongly dislikes. My sexual orientation, my way of life, and all that. And sometimes it gets the better of people. Now this month, I hope to protest something. It's a little bit of civil disobedience. And it comes from what happened the last couple of times I tried to go to such an event. I'm talking about the Arizona State Fair. I am single by heart, and I love going to those things alone. And for some reason, the ride operators at the State Fair are very hostile to that. Don't get me wrong, there are safety reasons why certain rides require two people to sit together, right? After all, if you have a medical event during a ride on the Ferris wheel, you want somebody nearby to flag down the ride operator. I get it. I wouldn't want to ride something that was unsafe. That's not what I'm protesting. I'm protesting how they handle such, right? You would imagine they could just have a separate area for people who go to the park alone, and they could put people together, right? But that's not how they choose to handle it for some odd reason. I suspect it's a little bit of fear of the unknown, right? You got people who are going there alone. If two people all of a sudden get into some kind of disagreement on the ride, right, or something like that, or it could just be that we live in the United States. A lot of people, when they have an advantage in some regard, right? They like to take privilege in that, right? We all talk about white privilege or gender privilege, but that's not so cool anymore to do at a state fair, right? Marriage privilege, or at least relationship privilege, is much more acceptable in today's society, right? So I almost didn't want to think about this week because, you know, I have a relatively good working environment now. I hate to jeopardize my job. One of the reasons I didn't go protest this week was I didn't want to end up being locked up and miss a couple of days of work and then having to explain what's going on. But earlier today, I had gone to, I recently moved, and as a result, on my way into work, I drove past the State Fair, and it brought tears to my eyes because I looked at all of the Ferris wheels, and I'm like, that's completely closed off to me, and I got to do it. But you know what? 2 weeks from now, next week we have solar eclipse, and I hate to be locked up and miss that. So right after the solar eclipse, I plan to do the strike. What I'm planning to do is to go to my favorite Ferris wheel at the State Fair, line up, and just hope for the best, right? Maybe they'll figure out a way to get me to ride. That would be good, although I won't get a chance to protest then. If not, I'll wait in line like everybody else, and when I get to the front of the line, explain my situation. Maybe wait a couple of times, right, to see if anybody is going to ride with me. And if not, I'm just going to go in the right, sit down, and say, why don't you figure something out? Because I'm just a human being like anybody else in here, right? And see what happens. And so maybe even document this somehow. I need to get a smaller camera. It's going to be very obvious if I use this camera to try and document that event, right? Or maybe have, I thought about asking a friend document with me what's going on. But it's going to look weird because if I can have a friend documenting my protest, people are going to wonder why that friend doesn't just come up on the ride with me, right? So that is kind of awkward. I think that's part of the reason why nobody has tried to protest this, right? It's hard to, you can't have multiple people go in there and protest. It's going to look odd, right? Okay, so I'm going to give that a try, hopefully next week after the solar eclipse, though, because we all know these things have a tendency to go sideways, and I'm trying to minimize the damage if I get locked up. I'm thinking of doing this on a Sunday night so that if I get locked up by Monday, I could be talking to a judge about what's going on, and who knows, hopefully it won't go in that direction, but you never know. But I wouldn't be too disappointed if it ended in that direction, because it would generate a lot of noise. I gotta do this when I'm in a good mood, though. Not today, because I just recently moved and I'm gonna be stressed out about that. And if I get locked up, I'm gonna be stressed out about missing the eclipse. And not when I'm in a bad mood for any reason. Hope for the best. I gotta be in a good mood, though, because these things have a tendency to rile up my anger. The last thing I want to do is to actually do something wrong while I'm trying to make my statement. But you know what's really frustrating? Every time I go to the state fair or one of these events, I went to the Ellensburg Rodeo and had the same problem. And then I email the organizers of the rodeo, say it's not in their control, right? They hire out these rides, right? And then I email, I think it was Midway Carnival, and the people that I emailed say, which operator was this? We would never do something like that. Yeah, right. If I see it 3 times, right, this is a system-wide problem. This is something that needs to have some training involved, right? The other thing I hope to accomplish, because a lot of people just think that, this guy's he's just lonely for now. He'll find somebody next time around when the carnival comes back. I want the concept of solosexuality to enter people's lexicon, right? It's not just single, it's solosexual, right? And so, because if you see it that way, it won't just be like, he's going through a phase in his life, right? But I thought I would record a little bit of a will, if you will, because we all know that as much as we hope these protests go peacefully and make a statement, there's always a chance of something really wrong happening, right? And if something were to happen to me, I want all of my wealth, the bismuth, my other metals, and my Roth IRA. I wanted to go to the Desert Botanical Garden because I made so many videos there, and it's become a big part of my new life here in Phoenix, Arizona. And so when if this protest were to go south and I go 6 feet under, I want this to be my tombstone, because that's how I live my life, and I want people to read about how life as a Peter Dislike was like, right? Okay, we got a little over a week until the protests anyway, because again, I want to see the solar eclipse first. And I talked to a few of my colleagues here. It looks like I will have support if I do end up getting locked up as a result of that. So it's mostly just the solar eclipse that I want to avoid missing. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.